evening. It's time for NTV Weekend Edition, and these are the stories we give main focus. Tonight, new details on the night of Monica Kimani's murder. TV journalist Jackie Maribe is back at the DCI. As Monica Nyawera Kimani is laid to rest in Gilgil. Also tonight,
inclusivity cannot be addressed unless we tackle the system of government.
The referendum train gathers steam. But the subject is still in the middle of the big political divide.
So your handshake from where I sit as the leader of majority,
plus, the plunder continues in the depleted Ngong forest as KFS declares war on the violators. And also tonight, true lies as told by members of Comedy Assembly.
The people, the ladies who are speaking in the toilet, giving experiences of who has given them money, were mentioning the name of the one Honorable Fatuma Gedi.
And Parliament discovers even more profitable use for toilets. It's Bullseye Friday.
NTV Weekend Edition with Mark Masai.
Good evening, my co-pilot while we're on air for a little under an hour. That is David Agondoa. Glad that you could join us. To our top story. The Law Society of Kenya, LSK, has declared a legal war against President Uhuru Kenyatta's government over the punitive taxes imposed on Kenyans by the Finance Act 2018. The lawyers have accused the president of ignoring the principle of public participation, which is provided for by the Constitution before any law is enacted. In a press statement issued by LSK, the lawyers say the president introduced additions to the initial Finance Bill 2018, which had not been debated on the floor of the National Assembly. The lawyers further accused the president of introducing the levies without public participation. The lawyers emphasized on the far-reaching effects of the taxes to the Kenyan taxpayer, who has to dig deeper into his pocket to get by. Senate Minority Leader James Orengo is the latest to voice support to calls for a change of the Constitution, saying the government needs to be more inclusive. But the referendum debate continues to elicit mixed reactions from both the political class and the citizens, as Vincent Oduor now reports.
Siaya Senator James Orengo was in the company of opposition leader Raila Odinga at the burial of Professor Ouma Muga in Rangwe, Homa Bay County. He is only the latest leader to wade into the referendum debate, calling for amendments to the Constitution to make the system of governance more inclusive.
Inclusivity cannot be addressed unless we tackle the system of government. We must turn back to a system of a parliamentary system of democracy if you are going to have inclusivity.
Such calls to review the country's supreme law have been gaining momentum. Third Way Alliance leader Ekuru Okot was in Thika Town to launch his Punguza Mizigo initiative. Dr. Okot hopes to collect 1 million signatures to push for a referendum to change the constitution and reduce the number of members of parliament from 416 to 194. These, he says, will save the country billions of shillings.
Tunataka reduce your cost ya running parliament to only 5 billion. In order to reduce your cost, ni lazima tupunguze wabunge ambao kwa sasa ni 416 hadi 194 pekee.
A good number of Kenyans agree that the burden is too heavy for them.
Governor pia ni wengi sana 47. Wacha ikuwe kama vile province ilikuanga. Alafu pia MCAs hawa nominated pia waondolewe. Waondolewe, hakuna ile kazi wanafanya tu huko. Tuko over represented.
Kama senator hawana kazi. Unaona wamekuwa pale kupigana na governor. Kwa hivyo hapo mimi naona afadhali governor baki, senator aondoke.
But not everyone is aboard the referendum train. This is now the subject of the latest political divide.
Kama unataka marekebisho ya katiba, tuachane mapema. Ukitafuta signature, sisi tuko na wewe. Unatafuta yako.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, on his part, while defending the new tax measures, said the cost of running the government as structured in the Constitution was too steep.
And this means that I must make a delicate balance between short-term pain and long-term gain.
Currently, the National Assembly has 349 members, while the Senate has 47 senators. The amendments to the Constitution are meant to address what is being seen as over-representation. Vincent Odur, NTV.
Now to some efforts to fight corruption. The Director of Public Prosecution, Nuruddin Haji, approved the prosecution of Siaya Governor Cornel Rasanga and county officials for using county funds to buy air tickets for his family and friends from the year 2013 to the year 2016. The information is entailed in a Gazette notice where the DPP also degazetted more than 300 prosecutors attached to various divisions effective the 5th of September this year. Further, between 1st April 2018 and 30th June, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission forwarded a total of 91 cases to the DPP for prosecution, some of which were sent back asking for further investigations. Ken Mijungu with some tenets of the war on corruption entailed in the Gazette notice.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has forwarded the second quarter report for the period commencing the 1st of April 2018 to the 30th of June 2018 to the Director of Public Prosecution as required by law. In this period, 91 files were forwarded to the DPP. 66 of the files were recommended for prosecution, 53 of them accepted for prosecution, 7 files recommended for administrative or any other action, 4 of which were accepted for the administrative or any other action. 18 files recommended for closure, 16 of them were accepted. 15 files have cases lodged in court, while 10 files were returned for further investigations. Among the notable cases includes the Ruaraka land scandal, where the DPP returned the file asking for further investigations. The DPP, however, accepted to prosecute a case where Siaya Governor Colonel Rasanga allegedly purchased air tickets for family and friends between the financial years 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, and 2015, 2016. The amount of money in question has not been indicated, but the governor, alongside other Siaya County government officials, had to be charged with unlawful acquisition of a benefit and abuse of office. The DPP also accepted a file recommending the prosecution of Busia Governor Sospita Ojamong and other county officials for abuse of office, where they are accused of engaging in unplanned projects leading to the loss of 8 million shillings. The loss of 791 million shillings at the National Youth Service is yet to be settled. On this scandal that has been branded NYS1, EACC notes that the DPP recommended for further investigations after an initial investigation on the suspects turned out to be untrue and without supporting evidence. This was based on an affidavit by one of the suspects implicating various persons, including the then Cabinet Secretary of Devolution Anne Waiguru and the Banking Fraud Investigation Unit officers. EACC has since forwarded to the DPP a report recommending that one of the complainants be charged with the offence of knowingly misleading the agency. EACC had relied on the suspect's affidavit to recommend prosecution, which was rejected by the DPP. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
On the crime beat now, businesswoman Monica Nyawera Kimani, who was found dead in her apartment in Kilimani, has been laid to rest in a rural home, Kenyakaira Village, Gilgil, Nakuru County. Meanwhile, TV journalist Jackie Maribe was for a second day at the DCI headquarters to record a statement following the arrest of her fiancé Joe Irungu, the key suspect in Monica's murder. NTV's Mel Miendo with the details.
Paul and Millicent Kimani fought back tears as they sat next to the coffin of their daughter, Monica Nyawera. There was an outpouring of emotion in Kenyakaire Village, Gilgil, as villagers gathered to bid farewell to one of their own. Monica's body was discovered on Friday, 21st September, in her apartment's bathtub in Kilimani. Her throat was slit, her legs and hands tied from behind. She was left to bleed out in her bathtub. Today, as she was laid to rest, this was the family's prayer and their cry for justice.
We would want to forgive lakini Mungu ambaye anatulipishia ahakikishe ya kuwa mambo yote yameenda kikamilifu.
Sheria hairuhusi watu kwenda kuua wengine, na hata kusema huyu wale waliomuua Monica washikwe na wapelekwe kotini, sio kusema hatusamei.
Deal with him according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray hair to go down to Shiloh in peace.
Monica was buried at her father's home in Kenyakaire village, Gilgil, where she was born and raised. Meanwhile, Citizen TV journalist Jackie Maribe reportedly recorded a statement at the DCI headquarters along Kiambu Road and left immediately after. The main suspect in Monica's killing, her fiancé Joe Irungu, commonly known as Joey, is in police custody. There have been claims that on the night before Monica Nyawera's murder, Joe Irungu was seen at a local pub with his fiancé and an MP from Nairobi. Investigations into the murder are ongoing. Mel Miendo, NTV.
To the family of Monica, tunasema pole sana. Over the last 2 months, there has been a spike in the number of violent crimes, particularly murder, that involves young women and girls. While religious leaders have termed this lack of care a sign of the times, criminologists and social experts say there's more to why young women in particular are increasingly falling victims to such crimes. And as Leila Mohammed now reports, the experts say society now has little value for human life.
Newspaper headlines and television broadcasts have in the past few months led with stories on one theme: murder. The victims of these heinous acts are mainly young women, the state of their bodies telling of the torment they went through as their souls slipped from their bodies.
When men are killing other people like chicken, like wild animals, it is perilous times.
Even as religious texts predict moments like this,
Timothy 3, the Bible says,
experts say the spike in these violent crimes reveals in part the shortcomings of modern-day parenting.
We look at it in terms of why are people falling into these victim circumstances, which is so hard to get out of. Yeah. So this case of Sharon plus others, we need to look at them from the other perspective. What are actually the root causes of this thing? One of them I see is poverty. I don't have, so if I can get this, I can move on with my life. Yeah. The other aspect is the aspect of counseling or knowing what is right, what we call the life skills. Who can teach us what is right?
For psychiatrist Dr. Karatu Kiemo, murder traces its roots to religious texts, quoting the first ever murder of Abel by his brother Cain. He says, rage is usually the fuel that drives one to murder.
When you hit my daughter several times, did you feel good?
For experts, the day-to-day coverage of these events could be giving criminals free publicity and doing more harm than good.
Especially the criminal minds, some of them are just happy to be in news, making news, whether it's negative news or whatever kind of news. So they get that copycat mentality. They start to see that they are heroes. They can also do it and get away with it. And there is some even mental illnesses you get where people get a lot of happiness when they are in the news for the wrong reasons.
Experts also say the threat of violence against women should delve deeper into the lives of the victims. Both religious and scientific experts believe that as a society, the fear of God not taking into consideration societal norms and parents abdicating their responsibilities could be the reason why many more cases will likely come up. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
The government will from next week start paying maize farmers money it owes them for their deliveries to the National Cereals and Produce Board. Announcing this earlier in the day, Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa said about 600 farmers are to benefit from the 1.4 billion shillings released by the Treasury. But even then, maize farmers at a heated session with the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on Maize expressed fears that the money may once again fall in the hands of ghost farmers or middlemen.
Money has been released for payment, and from next week, Kenyan maize farmers will get their payments. That announcement may now serve to calm the hearts of hundreds of maize farmers in the vast Rift Valley and western regions that have for some time been clinging on to hope that someday they will have money in their accounts for their hard work.
It might have looked like we took a long time to verify. It was important, such that whatever we pay goes to genuine farmers.
The Senate Ad Hoc Committee on Maize has been in the North Rift meeting farmers, sometimes in stormy meetings, in an effort to address their concerns through a report they will later write and subject to debate on the floor of the House.
Tunataka kuhakikishia nyinyi kwamba kwa sababu Senate haina checkbook, tutafuatilia hiyo maneno.
Among the sticky issues, the prompt payment of farmers when maize is delivered to the National Cereals and Produce Board, the price of fertilizer, and cutting down on middlemen that have been eating into their dwindling profits.
Nilikuwa na calculate, nikaangalia, nikasema tunapanda eka moja kwa kiasi ya shilingi 35,000, 30 to 35,000. Cost of production kwa kunia moja ni hiyo 2,000. And somebody is mentioning the other day kwamba kunia ya mahindi ni 1,600. Are we really Kenyans?
Tulienda na wamama na wengine wale tulitoka Gurgun, kufika huko tunaambiwa machine haiwajui, inajua majina lakini ninyi si wakulima because haijasema mnalima nini. Ili ni force nikuje mimi nichukue Otieno here mpaka Mosoriot aende athibitishe kuwa sisi ni wakulima. Even after then hatukupewa phosphate because mpaka iingizwe kwa system. And do you know what happens at the end of the day? We have to corrupt. Because sasa utafanya nini?
Farmers want their leaders to act quickly and find lasting solutions to these issues, as they also complain on the criteria used to identify farmers to be paid.
Sasa juzi ya Ministry of Agriculture wameweka pesa kufanya process ya registration of farmers. Sasa Ministry of Agriculture, what business do they have in registering farmers when we have county government that should be able to help and do the registration? Hii sababu ya kusikia mama anaambiwa ati huko kwa system is because the system is being designed from Nairobi. Why don't you give it to county governments to register our farmers that we know?
We as Senate, we will work with you to ensure agriculture is fully devolved. Na itutaki tu ikuwe fully devolved without the money, but we want ikuje na pesa.
Earlier today, the ad hoc committee met officials from the National Cereals and Produce Board. The officials were hard pressed to explain how they vet farmers, as it emerged that real farmers are often left out of monies the government releases. Farmers in the North Rift region have one pertinent cry to the government: fix the system and you will already have fixed almost 90% of our problems. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV in Mosoriot, Nandi County.
From the maize farmers to the forest conservatives, conservationists, I should say, the Kenya Forest Service, KFS, has declared war on the violators of the moratorium on logging and charcoal burning in Kajiado County. More than 55 people have already been arrested in connection to the violation of the moratorium. This comes after NTV aired an expose that linked politicians and senior police officers in the county to the illegal charcoal burning menace. KFS, in collaboration with Kajiado County agencies, carried out aerial surveillance in Kajiado County to flush out the violators of the charcoal moratorium. Daniel Mule reports.
A forest of issues remain deeply rooted in the logging and charcoal burning despite the 6 months moratorium on the activities. Kajiado County is not yet out of the woods, with the vice still being alive under the cover of the same trees it is cutting down. And though the Kenya Forest Service and Kajiado County government say the number of cases of logging and related violations have reduced in the county, they conducted an aerial search. Some culprits who were caught red-handed transporting charcoal in Kajiado Forest ran off, leaving the charcoal behind.
We had several hotspots which we had identified, but when we went around, we found that most of them are now quiet, no activities going on, except where we are now, where there's some small hiccup here and there, but this will be addressed.
We've been able to arrest several cases, about 55 cases. 19 are pending in court. About 39 have been finalized, and we have about 400 bags of charcoal that have been forfeited to the state, and about 6 vehicles, motor vehicles, have been also forfeited to the state. We've also raised a amount of revenue from the court fines, about 1.6 million shillings, which have been paid to the court as court fines.
NTV recently aired an expose where a member of parliament was linked with the illegal charcoal burning. In a different report aired by NTV, a chief inspector of police was released under unclear circumstances after being arrested for transporting charcoal using a police truck.
The police officer has been taken arraigned to court and released on cash bail. And of course, other disciplinary procedures have commenced to deal with him.
But these officers now say things have changed.
Today we came by air, we have been coming by road. If there's sea, we shall come by sea. But no effort will be left.
We are focusing on the outlets because we believe that if we can be able to disable outlets and traders who are dealing in charcoal, we are going to break the whole chain of charcoal burning and transportation.
Logging and charcoal burning in Kajiado County have been linked to poverty in the county, with the officers deciding to educate the locals on the importance of environmental conservation. The practice has left the semi-arid county in a tighter grip of drought for a long time.
We have already supplied some tree seedlings to ensure that the forest cover has increased in Kajiado County.
The locals have been encouraged to embrace alternative sources of energy to reduce over-reliance on firewood and charcoal. The 6 months moratorium on forest products lapses in November. Daniel Mule, NTV.
Here's a dope story, if we could call it that. There is no evidence of institutionalized doping among athletes in Kenya. That's the verdict of the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, following a 21-month investigation. Despite the verdict, the number and caliber of athletes involved in doping is alarming. More than 50 athletes have failed doping tests and banned since last year. Among them, embattled 1500 ace Asbil Kiprop and 2016 Olympic marathon champion Jemima Sumgong. Sean Carter spoke to WADA officials for this report.
The World Anti-Doping Agency ranks the country among the top 3 nations in the world with high cases of doping among athletes. In what could be construed as a positive, WADA, whose representatives are in the country, described Kenya's doping practices as uncoordinated.
We could identify some cases which are still ongoing, so we work with different agencies, law enforcement agencies, in order to run these cases. For the athletes, what we see, what we can confirm is that doping is not really planned; it's more opportunistic.
Their conclusions, which we share, is that there isn't an institutionalised regime of doping in Kenya, like there might have been in Russia, of course, but that the doping situation in Kenya is unstructured. There's a black market for doping products because of the money involved in doping, and of course that Kenya is a very high-risk country for doping.
According to WADA, 138 Kenyan athletes tested positive for prohibited substances between 2004 and the 1st of August 2018. 113 of them failed the doping test during competitions. Kenya's forte events, middle distance and long distance running, has been marred by doping cases. In 2017 alone, WADA estimated the number of positive cases at between 49 and 52 within the previous 4 years. Some of Kenya's biggest names have been caught up in the doping scourge, including 2016 Olympic marathon champion Jemima Sumgong, former 1500 meters world champion Asbil Kiprop, half-marathon specialist Matthew Kisorio, and double world cross-country champion Emily Chebet. The situation was so dire in 2016 that it took government intervention to WADA for Kenyan athletes to be allowed to participate at the Rio Olympic Games. Kenya subsequently enacted legislation that outlawed doping in sports, with a penalty of up to 3 million Kenya shillings and 3 years in jail for anyone convicted. A WADA-accredited laboratory was also launched in Nairobi.
Last year alone we conducted over 1,155 tests. This year we have targeted 1,500 this financial year.
So even though we're told the situation is bad on the ground, the good news is that doping is not institutionalized. Sean Carter-Villis, NTV at the Trademark Hotel.
As if it wasn't enough to have the fuel prices go up, there are Kenyans who are paying for fuel still at the high price, but paying for water in the name of fuel. Shindwe. About 10 drivers who fueled at Total petrol station along Kimathi Street brought their cars back after mechanical hitches brought about by adulterated fuel. The drivers converged at the station demanding an explanation and compensation. According to the management, the contaminated fuel believed to contain water was this morning supplied by Total Kenya, who declined to give a comment. Throughout the afternoon, the petrol station remained cordoned off with private security keeping guard.
Early in the morning, Total Kenya Limited walikuja na G4S na wakanitoa nguvu. Nikaenda kukimbia kotini. Vile nimesikia walileta lori of which sijui kama ni mafuta ama ni maji.
I went to ile pump ya mafuta on that far end. The guy akaniuliza if at all it's cash ama M-Pesa. Then I said cash. Akasema sawa because they don't accept. How accept M-Pesa ama kadi. So akanifuelia 1,000 bob na nikamlipa 1,000. Nikaenda from Jamia to Nation Center. Gari yangu ikazima all of a sudden.
Let's pump the brakes at this point for NTV Weekend Edition, but I'll be back with more. You'll find me right here. Please stay right there. Welcome back. Just before we went for a break, we told you the story about 10 drivers who fueled at a Total petrol station along Kimathi Street and took their cars back because their cars had developed some mechanical problems and they wanted some explanations and compensation. Well, Mungu ni mkubwa, and this is why. Total Kenya in a statement says they have started investigations to establish how fuel in the underground tank got contaminated with a view, beg your pardon, to finding solutions to such occurrences in the future. Total says the station will remain closed until the situation has been remedied. Well, to those who are disgruntled, they've also reached out to the affected motorists and will resolve with each of them individually. To continuing coverage and series that we have been having this week, empowering women and girls and ending all forms of discrimination against them is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But in Kenya, where do women and girls stand in as far as reaching this goal is concerned? In our special series, Keeping the Promise, Gladys Gashanja looks at the rugged steps made towards achieving the two-thirds gender principle and why its realization still remains an illusion 8 years after the Constitution was ratified.
The journey to realizing the two-thirds gender rule has been marked by many ifs, buts and maybes.
A constitution that had specific timelines for certain legislative proposals to be passed by this very House, and the legislative's proposal to enable the implementation of not more than two-thirds gender rule is now 8 years, Mr. Speaker, and it has not been passed.
I think burying our heads in the sand would not help. One, a good number of MPs, especially the male colleagues, have some fear of more women in parliament for reasons best known to them.
It's not a women's issue. This is a human rights issue. It's a right to equality. It is in the Bill of Rights in our Constitution.
Na tunasema kama wakina mama hatutaki two-thirds tena. Hiyo sheria hatutaki, tutachukua 50%.
This was the stance by women going into the 2017 general election. The 12th Parliament now has 97 women, the highest in the country's history, but the numbers still fall short of the 30% quota dictated by the Constitution.
Communities that people never thought they can even think of a woman leading them. This last election, they actually elected women, not even nominating. Slowly by slowly, we are coming to discover that we need both the girls and boys to develop for the society to be a better place.
Political parties have played a role in supporting the women. Maybe we need to do more because I think the disadvantages are actually three which works against women. One is violence. Two is resources, which historically women have been disadvantaged on, and then finally stereotyping, where men actually use other factors and the campaigns is not women friendly.
The Constitution dictates that no more than two-thirds of members of any appointive or elective position should be from the same gender. 8 years on, Kenya is yet to give life to this provision.
The Constitution has already admitted that we are not Sweden, we are not Norway. Those ones are already doing 50-50. We are still doing two-thirds.
A lot of people have even said this concept is foreign, is not African. But our neighbors, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, South Africa, and other countries, they have moved forward.
When Kenya was ready to report for the CEDAW, the CEDAW is the Convention on Elimination of the Discrimination Against Women. Kenya is one of the countries that has signed that convention. And when it was put forth for the cabinet secretary then to respond to it, literally the government delegation did not have an answer of why, because the why is not something tangible.
The two-thirds gender principle is coming up for debate and voting for the fourth time later in the year, and questions abound over the role of affirmative action.
If we are creating these positions to capacitate women so that they can compete effectively and fairly with men of with their colleagues of the opposite gender, then I think we should see a demonstration of the same. I would like to see, going to the next election, out of the 47 women, for example, more than half of them now going to constituency seats.
So I am also part of the group that believes that women who are nominated need to be public leaders in their own right. That you had already brought yourself forward to be elected. You tried to get, for example, the party nomination, and then the challenges around that party nomination made it such a way that you are not with 0 votes, but you are not the winner. You are a loser, but a loser who tried.
With Kenya lagging behind her neighbors on enforcing greater women representation in political spheres, younger blood is needed to push through this 5th Sustainable Development Goal.
It's not a lot of young women who are out there fighting for 2/3. It's again women who've been in the struggle. It's that handing intergenerational, sharing of ideas, intergenerational leadership, passing the baton. I think that's not happening for our country, and it's not a good thing.
Practical example, we saw someone like Honorable Mishi in Mombasa. She ran in the last general election. She was a women rep, but when it came to the last election, she said, "I do not want to run as a women rep." This is an opportunity for another woman to be able to get into this position as a member of parliament.
Gladys Gashanje, NTV.
Let's visit a country and a continent now, just for some wardrobe concerns. Be careful how you dress in Kinshasa if you plan to travel there, or if you know someone who's planning to travel there. Police have arrested dozens in the Democratic Republic of Congo capital as courts are set up on the streets to charge the women accused of dressing lightly.
For the past week, police officers in Kinshasa have decided to clean up the capital from a phenomenon called ujana, which is the prostitution of young children. By late Thursday, 29 girls aged between 17 and 22 years had been arrested. They were then tried in public and open air at the Suba-Lemba intersection, which is one of the busiest streets in the Congolese capital. Hair undone, visibly tired after 5 days of detention, the girls waited under the sun, sitting on the floor in the middle of their lawyers before appearing at the court table. Curious onlookers followed the proceedings keenly. Parents also attended these fairground hearings. Dozens of girls were later released when it became evident that they are over 18 years.
My daughter went to a party. Let her go. She did not come to prostitute herself. She came for a birthday party.
It is very young girls aged 10 to 17 who fall into depraved morals. We have fundamental values, African values.
Police promise to conduct more arrests in bars, hotels, and prosecute owners who allow minors in their premises.
Batu Bakongo bana mambo. They should try that here in Nairobi. Watajua hawajui. We take another break here. We'll be back with the business. Stay with us. Let's transact. Kenyans have had it tough this month. No kidding. As the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, reports that inflation hit 5.7% in September. This is the highest it has been in the last 12 months, something that has been attributed to the value-added tax imposed on fuel. Most indicators that drive inflation remained on an upward trend, even as KNBS reports that the economy grew by 6.3% in the second quarter of the year. The growth is significantly higher than the 4.7% that was registered at a similar period last year. It is the highest growth for the second quarter since 2013, when the economy expanded by 7.5% in the second quarter products takes effect. The Ministry of ICT is at advanced stages of developing a data protection and privacy bill that seeks to shape how institutions collect, use and store personal information in a digitally evolving world where data is a highly valuable resource.
Amid growing concerns about the safety of personal data scattered across companies and government agencies, the ICT Ministry says a bill laying down how personal information can be collected, used, shared and stored by data handlers is coming up.
As we speak, we're in the process of getting citizens' participation and feedback from both the individuals and corporations, because again, data protection is key. The other part, which was the access to information, I think that's already in play and people can use that.
The Kenya Data Protection Bill 2018, which largely targets financial institutions, telecom firms and state agencies, prescribes hefty fines of up to 5 million shillings for those who contravene the provisions that require data collectors to seek an individual's consent before collecting, processing, sharing or storing their data. There have been concerns that the new bill would conflict the Data Protection Bill of 2018, sponsored by Senate ICT Committee Chairperson Gideon Moi, and that is currently before the Senate.
We don't have two bills that will be presented. We are going to have one. We've already spoken with the chair of the ICT Committee in the Senate. We've met with him and we've agreed that we're going to harmonize the bills so that the data protection or privacy and data protection bill is actually going to then go to Parliament.
According to rights group Article 19, more than half of African countries have no data protection or privacy laws in place, and 9 of the 14 that have no regulators to enforce them. On Wednesday, American digital taxi firm Uber was fined a total of $148 million for attempting to conceal a 2016 data breach, just 2 months after Facebook was fined $662,000 over its Cambridge Analytica data scandal, in which data belonging to about 87 million users was breached. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business.
Let's take you to Makueni County, which is now confident it will achieve complete food security status within 3 years. That is if all the farmers in the county adopted the principles of smart agriculture. The county has suffered the impacts of prolonged drought and land degradation, and now the county government, through several climate-smart projects, is taking steps to restore the land through conservation agriculture. Zainab Wandati reports on Food Friday.
Caroline Masimbi is a primary school teacher in Kithia Village, Kaiti constituency, Makueni County. When she's not in class, she's a farmer. For 3 years now, she's been practicing conservation agriculture on her 2-acre piece of land, but convincing her husband to let her do it in the first place wasn't easy, but eventually he let her have a small portion.
Sasa nikamwambia, vile unilipea 1 page, wewe utatoa yako, yenye inatoshana na ile yangu. Mafuno ya ile yako na mafuno yangu tulinganishe ni gani inakuwa na mazao mingi. Sasa ndivyo tukafanya tu hivyo. Yangu 1 bench ilitoa 2 bags. Yake ilitoa half.
That difference in the yield was enough to convince her husband to let her put more land under CA, and the next season the harvest improved to 12 bags. Today the entire 2 acres is under conservation agriculture.
Sahi, hii shamba iko na 3 years bila kulimwa. Na nakwambia ukweli kabisa venye sasa unaona. Hii shamba, vile unaona hizi mahindi, I'm expecting 18 bags of maize.
Caroline is among the hundreds of farmers in Makueni County who are adopting conservation agriculture, ensuring that there's minimum tillage, permanent ground cover, and that they rotate their crops frequently. Given Makueni's vulnerability to prolonged dry weather, the county has developed a climate change policy which gives heavy importance to climate-smart agriculture.
We have 1% of the development, the total development fund for Makueni, going to what we call the climate fund for Makueni, and this is going towards the issues of addressing climate resilience. And under conservation agriculture, we are seeing a lot of now monies from the county going into the issues of purchasing the conservation agriculture tools.
In conservation agriculture, you are not supposed to clear your farm. If you have stovers like this one, maize stovers and so forth, this one cuts them up to allow the reaper to penetrate into the soil.
Makueni has an estimated 52,000 hectares of land under crop, and most CA adopters are using small-scale equipment such as animal drone reapers, jab planters, and shallow weeders.
This one is called jab planter. Dani, open, close. Dani, open, close. For an ordinary mama mzee, okay? You can do an acre.
In one day?
In one day.
With this?
With this. The fertilizer goes on one side and the seeds. When you look at this, you can see the fertilizer will have been dropped deeper than the beans.
We have a total of around 160,000 farm families. And farm families are those farmers who are farms and they are practicing farmers. If every farmer, not even doing the conservation agriculture in the entire farm, but 1 acre, I am telling you, within 3 years, we'll not talk of food insecurity in Makueni.
Kenya's adoption rate of CA is still low, but is expected to grow within the next few years as the changing climate continues to exert pressure on the agriculture sector. Zainab Wandati, NTV, for Food Friday.
From Koya, Makueni County, we will end NTV Business. But Emmanuel Juma will be back to tickle you after the break with Bullseye. You remember the lady Firi Firi and... could have been coined for movies, but Kenyan politicians, it appears, are on the road to making it come true. It was a week of comedy at the Nairobi County Assembly with ladies playing the big roles. But as members of the Comedy Assembly played, members of Parliament were revealing their new tricks of cashing in. And as Emmanuel Juma reports on Bullseye, you will think differently about toilets after watching this.
Leader majority.
This is the house of business. But which business, you may ask? From this kind of business to this. Yes, music. Music to soothe you, make you believe again in their caring, philanthropic nature. Then there is another kind of business, perhaps the most important of them all.
I could hear people in the toilet, inside the toilet, telling each other, how much have you been given and who has given you? So I could hear the transaction from people inside the toilet, talking about how they've been given money by one honorable called Honorable Fatuma Gedi.
Toilet business, or we could just call it shady. Or is it shitty business?
I stood there waiting to see who is going to come out of that toilet. And when they realized there's somebody, because my phone rang and I answered my phone, I'm sure they must have captured my voice. They never came out of that toilet until the bell rang to go to the chambers.
Hold on, Wambushoba.
Do you want to tell me that two women or three women were inside one toilet? Please speak the truth.
That is my story. And I said I'm speaking the truth, and that is the truth.
And they fitted in a single cubicle? Where money is concerned, the impossible happens indeed, right?
If what you heard is voices of two or three people inside one cube or the toilet, why didn't you also join them then?
That is to my imagination.
Very well.
And you thought toilets were meant for just one kind of business? Wrong. Our adventurous members of parliament have found a new and more profitable use for toilets. It's not just a place for deposits. Apparently, you can also withdraw when you visit the toilets at parliament buildings. At the Kisumu County Assembly, they are also speaking. Never mind that their language, the speaker must go language, has now reached Kisumu.
And the law is very clear.
That clarity they all speak about remains rare and in short supply. The result?
That is it, she's there.
Drama. Call her the Lone Ranger, but she ensures she's heard. Somebody dared include her name on the list of those lined up to replace the Nairobi Speaker, Beatrice Elashi. Can't go, won't go seemed to be what she had decided. This was real. Mama, what was the matter?
They go ahead and with mar and spite putting my name there. So I had to kind of storm the meeting and tell them that they cannot misuse my name.
Well, this too was real. Then she was called to account.
Nani aliingia na funjo kwake? Hii ni mlango, mimi nimeingia hivi, hata nitawaonyesha hii ni mlango. Mimi nimekuja nimeingia hivi, kuingia hivi nimepigwa. Sasa funjo hapa nani ameanza?
Really?
Si mimi nilikuwa naona ndimu. Mimi hakuna kitu niliona. Maybe kama wale wengine waliingia wakamisbehave, hiyo ni mbaya. Hata mimi siwezi taka kitu kama hiyo.
You were there too. What did you see?
There was no scuffle. There was no fight.
Mimi kwanza sijui hiyo. By the way kwanza nimeokoka.
But madam, it's you here raising all the hell. Oh, she is good. Really good. Somebody give this lady an Oscar. And you think you know your MCAs? Just call her member of the Comedy Assembly. And what is happening at Gor Mahia?
One of us anaenda kuambia watu ya kwamba Umuoch, yani imelipuka kwetu.
Chairman, things Umuoch.
The Gor Mahia stage has witnessed a theater of tragicomedy as well as of the absurd. A theater where miserably impecunious self-seekers, some of no fixed abode, are playing the role of philanthropic benefactors.
In plain English, please.
And failed pseudo-politicians are trying their hands at the maiden trade unionism drama, where hired layabouts have taken to the social media to echo their desperate masters' voices in the most virulent terms, and to vomit varying doses of imbibed, albeit undigested vitriol at the behest of their cowardly demagogues.
Racheriawa, PLO, Mekwe.
Jina naitwa Sheikh Makbul Yusuf Karim Jerry Odhiambo.
And it is a habit from Nairobi to Migori.
They have decided to be playing abracadabra. They are playing what we call fox kittenish character with the lives of our peoples.
From English to mathematics, 50 plus 1 is 51, right? Wrong. Just ask a Kenyan cop.
Kadile tuko naye hapa ni kama 50 police officers, including me, it is about 70.
Now you know why this 50 plus 1 thing is always controversial. In conclusion,
this regime is composed of nauseous, nothing, and nugatory individuals who should never be given room to do administration.
Emmanuel Juma, Bullseye, NTV.
Yeah, I thought I knew some English. It's now time for sports after the break. Stay with us.
NTV.
SportPesa Premier League following a 1-0 victory over Coast Stima in a National Super League clash held at the Moi Stadium in Kisumu. Mukisa Jr. scored the lone goal in the 88th minute, which sees them maintain top spot on 76 points. This means that the worst Stima can finish is second. Second place KCB beat Green Commandos 2-0 to maintain their promotion quest. Embattled AFC Leopards coach Rodolfo Zapata has been suspended, with assistant coach Tom Juma and team manager Gilbert Celebwa taking temporary charge. The Argentine will not be on the touchline during Ingwe's final 2 league matches this season against Ulinzi Stars on Sunday and Zoia Sugar next Saturday. Of course, AFC Leopards are currently ranked 4th on the Premier League standings. The national women's volleyball team, Malkia Strikers, concluded their training in the city of Hamamatsu under Japanese coach Sadatoshi Sugawara ahead of the 2018 FIVB Volleyball Women's World Championship that serves off on Saturday. Coach Jafet Munala's charges will kick off their campaign against Kazakhstan in Pool D, which also consists of Brazil, Serbia, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. Now, Benjamin Marshall of Nondi's, Homeboys forward Brian Wandera, Mwamba captain Eliakim Kichoi, and Homeboys fly-half Johnston Olindi are among the new names in the 21-man squad selected to prepare for the forthcoming Africa Sevens in Tunisia from the 13th of next month. Leonard Mugaisi, Alvin Otieno, Michael Wanjala, Haman Humwa, Cyprian Kuto, and Brian Wahinya, who have played for the Kenya Sevens before, also make the squad. Football Kenya Federation carried out a 1-day physical endurance test for 37 referees who have been shortlisted for selection in the FIFA assignments next year. The exercise saw the match officials taken through a series of endurance and agility drills to ascertain whether they are physically fit. They also underwent medical tests prior to the exercise. Raymond Onyango and Elizabeth Njoroge are among those that will lined up for international debut in 2019. Marko Arnautovic will return to the West Ham team as Manchester United look to